Yeah, bro, I look so dark. What's good, y'all? What's good, y'all? I'm back. Listen, we're reacting. You already know. Anyway, the most misunderstood trope in fiction by Pavlover. He's verified. That means he's better than me in every which way. Let's go.
These days, the word fraud gets thrown around a lot, especially in anime. A character struggles, fraud.
Fraud. You only got to do. Oh man, doesn't live up to potential fraud.
Character gets hit once, fraud. A character loses a fight, mega fraud. This is called the fraud paradox. It's a phenomenon that can be described as
Why is Goku your mic? I really need an explanation on why Goku's your mic. You right.
a moment where the audience labels any character who doesn't meet their own expectations a fraud, instead of looking at what the story is actually trying to say. And listen, I'm not gonna lie.
Hey, Shadow Beast, no, they're just genuinely frauds though. Like, I'm not listening to nothing you're about to say. If you say Shadow Beast at any point, I'm just gonna say you're lying.
It does feel good to do that. The problem is that we're just sitting there with our phones out, ready to post fraud allegations the moment a character fails at anything. It's easy to call everyone a fraud versus truly analyzing whether the story is actually presenting them as one. So today,
yeah, Usopp's unfortunately not a fraud. Oh my fucking god, bro. Usopp unfortunately is not a fraud. I hate the guy, but he's not a fraud.
I want to show you two things that most of the time when people call someone a fraud, it's just not true. And also that fraud characters are actually one.
Yeah, Hercule's not a fraud either. Also, unfortunately, he's just not Goku enough.
Of the coolest tropes in fiction. The first thing we have to do is establish what the heck a fraud even is. So, a fraud character is a character whose reputation contradicts reality. That is it. Like, for example, imagine everybody is hyping up someone for being good at something, but when they do the thing in question, they are simply not good. Now, what's pretty crazy is that even though this kind of seems like a recent thing, frauds have been in storytelling for centuries. We're talking Tartuffe in 1664, the wizard in The Wizard of Oz, Gilderoy Lockhart from Harry Potter. This trope
I've never seen Harry Potter.
Has been around for a while. But where it gets kind of interesting is that fraud characters have always been very controversial for a very good reason. The thing is that in most stories, especially, action adventure stuff, being good at doing things is super important. Think about almost any shonen protagonist.
Yeah, that's why Deku was a fraud for so long, quotations on that. Because he just wasn't good as the rest of the people around him. But if you broke down his situation, he can't be a fraud. He's literally progressing faster than all of them their entire life. Well, no, since they were 4 or 5, he progressed way faster than all of them. What he did in a year is what they've been trying to do their whole life.
These characters might initially be weak, but they show up, they put in the work, they demonstrate that they are, in fact, that dude. Usually they're either competent or they become competent with time. So when somebody has a reputation they did not earn, people lose their minds. And this is not even just an anime thing. We feel exactly the same in real life. We have all seen somebody get handed something they absolutely had no business receiving, and it felt frustrating. The feeling a fraud character triggers in people is not just, oh, this character is mid. It's actually, this is unfair. But here's the thing. Not every fraud is built the same. In my opinion, there are two completely different types of fraud characters. The first category is what I'm calling the actual fraud characters. For example, Reigen Arataka from Mob Psycho 100. This man is running a whole psychic consultation business, charging people a bunch of—
Yeah, Reigen's a fraud, y'all. Like, if y'all didn't know, it's Reigen. It's a big ass fraud. Like, he's literally lying in real time. He can't do none of the things he says.
Money to solve their supernatural problems, presenting himself like he is the real deal. But the show straight up tells you that he is not a real psychic, just a dude who does some vaguely spiritual stuff to make people feel better, like massages to remove their tension. There's also King from One Punch Man, a dude who is ranked as one of the strongest
his entire perception of life is just being a fraud.
Heroes on the planet, while he has basically never saved a single person in his life and has zero powers. I mean, most of the time, he is just playing video games at home. There's
Just
Mr.
chilling
Satan from
together.
Dragon Ball, Usopp at the beginning of One Piece, and probably a bunch of other ones I just don't know. But here's the key thing that all of these characters have in common. The writer wants you to know they are a fraud. It is baked directly into the DNA of the story. The second category isn't about a character being written directly as a fraud. It's about the audience building a character up in their head to a level that the story never actually promised, and then losing their mind when reality doesn't match up with this vision.
Renji is very important because everybody just thinks Renji's cold as shit because he had a fight with Ichigo at one point. And you know, Ichigo and Renji, they were supposed to be coming up together in strength, and Renji loses every single fight. But Renji is that's the whole point. He is the realistic version of Ichigo. If we're talking about growing in strength, gets his Bankai pretty fast, gets a lot stronger, can fight a lot of people, but can't beat them. He's what Ichigo's supposed to be if Ichigo didn't have all the extra stuff on top of what he already has.
Something happens that makes people feel like they got tricked. Maybe the character loses a fight that the fanbase had already decided was an easy win for them. Maybe they're struggling against somebody that everybody thought wasn't that strong. Maybe they actually have unexpected limitations. Or maybe they even go from being the protagonist to more of a supporting role as the story develops. Whatever. The perfect example of this is Renji from Bleach. This man has basically become a meme at this point. I'm not joking, his whole identity in the anime community has been reduced to one thing. He's the guy who loses. And look, I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it because the track record is what it is. He loses to Ichigo, the main character, multiple times. He loses to this guy early in the series. He loses to that guy later in the series. Like, the defeats just keep coming and coming and coming. And after a while, he was officially considered the fraud of this series. But if you've spent even a few minutes in any anime space online, you already know that this second category is basically all that people are talking about when they say fraud.
Yeah.
And trust
These are what people think frauds are. They just talk about these two. That's why I don't think Naruto's never been a fraud to me. He just chose the two worst matchups, and those are the only two fights we've ever seen him fight in. Like he chose a curse, someone that is very durable, and then he chose someone that literally is just like dirt, like their body is heavenly perfect. Like he fought the two worst people for him.
me, the list keeps growing. Every other week, there is a new character getting put on there. New victims getting dragged into the fraud allegations court. It never stops. Even your favorite character is not safe. But the real question is, why? Why?
Yeah, because Toji's not a fraud, brother. Toji's a real human being that fights how you're supposed to fight with no cursed energy. He's fighting niggas that have special powers. Why would I not sneak up on the dude that broke the balance of the Jujutsu world? Why would I not? Why would I fight one-on-one, face up? Hey Gojo, let's box. Straight up. Let's go, man. Why would I do that? I have to sneak him. I gotta get a cutoff. I gotta get one. And then I gotta confuse him. I gotta drain his body. I gotta make him real tired mentally, make him not think, and I gotta cut him down. That's not crazy.
Is this happening so much? Well, the truth is, it did not just start randomly. There are very specific reasons why modern fandom culture turned into this. The first thing is that, unfortunately, nuanced, well thought out takes do not go viral very often. But do you know what does go viral?
Slander.
This man is a fraud. I mean, just
Slander.
imagine a character you personally like starts being called a fraud. Immediately, that creates some kind of strong reaction. The
You wanna
second
defend
reason
it?
is something called power scaling. Power scaling is
Power scaling fucking sucks, bro. Mind you, the later we get into anime itself, the more people, the authors just don't care. Like, Gojo has a crazy ability that doesn't match the strength that he has. Like, Gojo could never destroy. I don't even think Gojo could destroy a city. I'm so serious. But he has something that could make him go leaps and bounds above what they count as city level. Like think about it. My Hero Academia. Deku physically could whoop Gojo's ass, but Gojo wouldn't get touched, so he wins. And Gojo could just purple. He could just throw that bitch out there. So I guess he's stronger. I guess, but it's supposed to be like that. Anime is getting more exclusive with the powers, which makes it better. But then power scaling makes power scaling so much worse, bro.
Basically the way fans compare characters' strength by analyzing their feats and abilities to figure out who would win in a hypothetical fight. And it has completely taken over the way people talk about anime. If you just go look at what people are discussing, it's often going to be about who beats who, who's the top 5 in the verse, what are their best feats, what's their power level, who's the strongest. I mean, there's a reason the expression, "but can they beat Goku," though, has become one of the most repeated phrases in the entire world of anime. And look, I'm not going to stand here and say that power scaling is necessarily a bad thing. It's not. Debating matchups between characters from different series can be genuinely fun, but it kind of becomes a problem when that's the only way you engage with a story. Because
the only reason you watch JJK is just to see and genuinely find out how strong Gojo is and if he can beat Goku or not. Come on, bro, just stop watching JJK. Just stop. Just watch.
The moment you start watching anime purely through a power scaling lens, characters stop being people with purpose and meaning and themes attached to them. They become competitors in a tournament, and when someone loses in a tournament, they're a fraud. Simple as that. Except that stories are not written like tier lists. They are not constructed around who would realistically beat who in a vacuum. Characters often lose fights for reasons that have nothing to do with their actual power level.
Exactly. So that's why I hate when people say, "Oh, Sukuna's weaker than Gojo." Yeah, that's why Sukuna picked up. That's why he did it. Yeah, I'm not gonna say it because it's spoilers, but there's a reason. Later on, you're gonna see very, very soon, probably like season 6, I'd say. Yeah, maybe season 5 actually. Probably season 5 actually. Never mind. But yeah, there's a reason why. There's a reason why Sukuna does what he needs to do in order to beat Gojo specifically. There's a reason.
I mean, that's basically how all of JoJo's fights work. But I think that the perfect example of this is actually Naoya from Jujutsu Kaisen. So when Naoya gets introduced, we discover he's part of the Zenin clan. This man looks down on pretty much everybody, especially women or people who don't come from a prestigious family. But to him, the absolute worst person alive is Maki, who happens to be both a woman and someone who isn't that strong to begin with. So when he fights Maki later in the story, he walks in with the same arrogance he's always had. And I mean, his technique is genuinely ridiculous. He can move extremely fast, making him almost impossible to track. For most of the fight, he's fully convinced that he's going to win. But then it goes in a pretty different direction, because Maki, the woman the entire clan treated like she was beneath them her whole life, the one who was looked down on especially because she has no special powers, has reached a completely different level. And she defeats Naoya very brutally. Now, here's the thing. The defeat is not the story saying Naoya was never strong. He was strong. To me, that's...
Yeah, there's a reason why Naoya had to do this shit while he was hitting Choso. He had to. He had to make it look easy so that you could understand how strong Maki really is. If we would have seen Yuta and Naoya go one-on-one, now Yuta would have whooped his ass. He would have. But if Yuta had a genuine hard time, but still beat him, and then you see Maki relatively have a similar easy time, y'all would start to think, oh, Maki's stronger than Yuta. She's not, but you get what I'm saying.
It's really not the point. The point is that everything he believed in, the hierarchy, the bloodline, the status, all of it got destroyed in that fight. Maki didn't just beat him physically, she dismantled his entire worldview and proved it was garbage. He lost not because he's a fraud, but because the story had something to say.
Yeah, because if Gege didn't want him to say that, he could have just kept Naoya in the story a little bit longer and had him fight some more people, or just had him in the Culling Games. He didn't want him in the Culling Games. That's why.
There are also times when a character loses not because they're a fraud, but because the story literally needs them to lose. The example I want to bring up is Kashimo from JJK, once again. When Kashimo first got introduced, people were hyped. This man was already really strong, but he also had an ability that he had been holding onto his entire life specifically for one moment. His fight against a guy called Sukuna. And let me be clear, he could not use it more than a single time. Based on everything we knew about him up to that point, the expectation was that when he finally unleashed his power, we were going to get a close fight. And then he used it. and Sukuna bodied him in a couple of pages. And not just like me being funny a couple of...
No. Literally. He used it. You saw a couple, didn't clash in a couple times, then he got his ass eviscerated.
pages. No, I'm talking about literally just a few pages. And the community immediately turned on him. He's a fraud. He was always mid. The hype was wrong. But is Kashimo a fraud? Or did he just run into the most powerful character in the entire story? Because those are two very different things. Listen, if you put a genuinely great basketball player, like a really talented, legitimately skilled on a court against LeBron James, and LeBron James cooks them, does that mean the guy was a fraud the whole time? Or does it just mean he ran into LeBron James? Kashimo walked into...
It's literally the whole thing that Ghetto says. Are you strong because you Satoru Gojo, or are you Satoru Gojo because you're strong? Or whatever he said. It's something along those lines. Like, that's literally it. Is Kashimo weak because he went up against Sukuna, or is Sukuna really fucking strong because he went up against Kashimo? Let's ask questions. Obviously, Kashimo's not weak. He just went up against Sukuna.
A fight against the final boss of the entire series and got treated like a final boss would treat somebody. In my opinion, what that loss is actually doing is showing you just how terrifying Sukuna really is. In good storytelling, a loss can be used to reveal something about the character, something about the world, something about the themes the writer has been building toward the entire time. The fight is just the vehicle. What it's trying to communicate is the actual thing. And on top of all that, there's another layer to this whole problem. And
it makes it even funnier. Thorfinn technically was a fraud. He never beat Askeladd. And then Askeladd just pretty much dies. Mind you, I just want to let y'all know, Thorfinn, no training for 2 years, could have whooped the shit out of Askeladd. Easily. But it was because he was in his head for so long, they literally had to do that. He made Thorkel cut fingers off. Askeladd's never touching Thorkel, ever. That nigga's fighting backwards against Thorkel.
That's the fact that we are all just so biased. A lot of the time, when people call a character a fraud, it's not like even really about the character. It's about the fact that we're judging them from our perspective instead of actually using the information the story is giving us. And look, I've been using JJK a lot throughout this because honestly, that's where this problem has been the loudest and the most obvious in recent years. But don't get me wrong, this applies to like every popular series you can think of. That being said,
yeah, because again, I unfortunately still gotta keep talking about JJK. Jogo's technically a fraud. Like he lost 2 fights. He had to jump some people to kill him, jump them, and then he lost. He jumped. No, he fought against Gojo, lost, jumped some people after that, then lost against Sukuna and died. Technically, he's a fraud, brother. He didn't jump them. He blitzed them. He blitzed 5 people with ease. Maki almost died. Nabito died. Nanami was cut, like literally burnt in half. Like, bro. And then he couldn't get to Megumi. So.
The example that perfectly captures this is Sukuna versus Gojo in Jujutsu Kaisen. For those of you who don't know, this is the biggest battle in the entire series. The most evil man in the universe going up against arguably the strongest. And what happens is that Sukuna ends up using a technique that's specifically advantageous against Gojo. Think of it as using a water type against a fire type in Pokemon. And somehow there was a whole period of time while the manga was coming out where people were genuinely calling Sukuna a fraud. The man who is objectively the strongest sorcerer in the entire series. The man who has run through multiple powerful opponents that we have seen, and the literal king of curses. A fraud. And why? Because he used strategy, because he didn't just walk up and delete Gojo with pure force.
He used strategy. That's literally what I call Sukuna a fraud, by the way. This is what I was talking about. This is this word. Because he went to Megumi Body and said, yo, let me get Maharaga. Y'all are mad. So, which one's more overpowered? Let me ask. Gojo without his Limitless or Sukuna without Maharaga? There's an answer. There's an obvious answer. Sukuna without Maharaga is still just Sukuna. Gojo without Limitless, strong ass nigga. right? Don't get me wrong, strong as hell. Red, blue, purple, you can give him all that. RCT, you can give him all the things he had in that fight. You take away Limitless, shit gets bad.
Because he adapted to the situation. Not only is this normal in a fight,
Mind you, they already knew pretty much everything about Sukuna. They just didn't know how strong he actually was. That's it. So he switched up his game plan so they couldn't find out how strong he actually was. Sukuna didn't know everything about Gojo. He knew most, but nobody knew how strong actually Gojo was. They literally did exactly what you would do before a fight. You're about to fight someone. You're like, Gojo was like, let me get some knuckle busters. Sukuna said, let me get a knife. A pocket knife, though. That's literally what they did. They assessed the situation. They knew they were about to fight. They said, okay, let me get something different. While Gojo was in the prison realm, Sukuna said, let me do something while he gets to train in there, because I know he's going to get released.
it also just makes sense with the kind of guy he is. My man represents pure evil. It would be weird if he didn't use these kinds of tactics.
He's evil.
As fans, we are chilling on our couch with all the necessary information, and we're telling a character what they should have done. But that character is not us. They are not operating with our comfort and our detachment. They're reacting to their own fears, their own limitations, their own beliefs, the specific situation
Because they are their own people.
they've been put into. So we ignore all that context. We ask, why would he do that? Or that doesn't make any sense. Every strategic decision looks like weakness. Every loss looks like proof. Every tactical move looks like they couldn't handle the situation. And before you know it, someone like the King of Curses is getting hit with fraud allegations. We're projecting our expectations onto them and then getting mad when they don't perform according to the vision we built in our own heads.
Mind you, they have to perform 1-to-1. 1-to-1. That's why I don't get why Yuta's called a fraud. I don't know what y'all thought was happening in y'all head. Yuta's still nice. He just doesn't want to do all that shit he did in the Sentai colony. That's a lot of work. I would rather just catch you lacking. What's the problem?
And look, I'm not gonna act like I don't do this. A character does something I don't understand or loses in a way that doesn't really make sense to me in the moment. My first instinct is to call them a fraud. But the thing is, when you take even just a tiny step back and look at the bigger picture, you start to notice something. The same writers who know the audience is clowning on these characters, they keep writing them the same way anyway. And it's not because they're out of ideas. It's because they know that these so-called fraud moments and these fraud characters open up storytelling possibilities that a character who just wins all the time and never struggles and always performs at maximum capacity simply cannot give you.
Mind you, and the reason why they make it a character that does it all the time is because they can't do it to the main character. How much disrespect do y'all think Goku got off of losing like 3 fights? How much disrespect do you think Goku has so far off of dying twice? Actually, not twice. He died twice. He died against Raditz and then he died against Cell. Technically. Even though he wasn't there. But technically he died. Goku gets all the slander in the world. Vegeta died too. Vegeta has to lose so Goku doesn't have to lose. That's literally the example. Vegeta has to lose, because if he don't, and Goku does, people can be like, why isn't he the main character? And y'all just gonna do that back and forth forever. Nobody wants to do that forever.
The second the story tells you that King has no powers, that Reigen is a fake psychic, that Mr. Satan did not defeat anyone, something fundamentally changes about how you watch every single scene those characters are in. You know the truth, but the world inside the story doesn't. And that gap is where the tension and the comedy comes from. Fraud characters and characters with limitations can actually make the competent characters look even more impressive. They can make the story unpredictable, like when a writer lets a strong character fail or shows their limitations.
Like now you're doing Choso like that just for Yuta to come through and be like, yo, get the fuck out of my way. And finish him off with ease?
In a real way, they're temporarily injecting that unpredictability back into a character that the audience had already figured out. And that's fun. Reigen makes you ask yourself what actually makes someone's help legitimate. Naoya shows you something about the entire Jujutsu world. Usopp started off lying to everybody about who he was, making up these crazy stories about his exploits, and then spend the entire series actually becoming the person he was pretending to be.
And that's exactly why I said he's no more fraud, and it pisses me off.
The fraud part is exactly what makes these people awesome, in my opinion. Now look, I am not saying we should just justify everything, because that's the other extreme, and it's just as bad. When a character does something that doesn't make sense to you, you should not just go, hey, trust the writer, bro. Sometimes a character is just genuinely written inconsistently. It happens. Like, why did Madara end up losing to Black Zetsu? Or why did Quicksilver get shot when this man can literally perceive
I digress.
bullets in slow motion? Those are fair criticisms, but those genuinely bad, inconsistent moments are actually way more rare than people think. I think. Writers keep coming back to fraud characters and fraud moments because they figured out that these characters done right can become some of the most interesting, most layered, most memorable people
That's why
in
Vegeta's
all of fiction.
That's why Vegeta's there. Y'all, people love Vegeta because of the fact that he loses and keeps fighting anyway. Versus Goku, who relatively wins all the time. Relative, of course.
Not in spite of their limitations and their losses and their fraudulent moments, but because of them.
Beautiful video. Love this video. Oh, wait. Hey, I think you actually need to put Reagan, the greatest psychic of the 21st century, and star the new paranormal world trademarked in the video. The kid beat cancer. Goku couldn't beat his heart disease. Kid upscale. Now you're getting flattened isn't a fraud alert. That's just pure karma. Yeah. That's literally his fault for coming into that fight thinking he could just talk to Maki, even though she literally started showing that she was able to see him. I digress. JJK fans would get a prize for giving the most fraud titles. They literally don't even read their own manga. Kashima's like Jogo, incredibly strong, but they challenged the wrong guy. I mean, do I gotta keep going? I've said this 8 times. Whatever, bro. That's another video down pat. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to stay away from the anime videos, but bro. Come on, bro. It's obvious. Come on, bro. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. You see it, bro. I love anime. Can't really. Come on. Whoa. Come on. It's kind of hard to show that one. You see it. Benny Morrow. Come on. I'm trying to stay away from it, but I love watching these. So, unfortunately, y'all gonna have to keep getting these until I find other videos to react to. Specifically, I need to start reacting to those comment videos. Yo, bro, them videos got me crying, bro. I gotta react to one of those. And I gotta start doing reels. I love reels so much. Love reels. You know, I hate outros, so
look, the show's over, fuck it, let's call some hoes over. I leave a bitch the type who won't give her no closure. What it is, you acting like that, I don't know you. You acting like that, I don't know you. The show's over, fuck it, let's call some hoes over. Leave a bitch, you know, the type who won't give her no closure. What it is, you acting like